All right, everybody. I want to welcome everyone to the Stockyards Bank WebEx series, Bright Ideas. My name is Jason Hamilton, Wealth Advisor. I'm actually based out of Cincinnati and have been your host for the last, 5 months, even though March seems like yesterday. It's been a little while that we've been doing this. So thank you again for joining us. Today I've got two new speakers to the Bright Ideas WebEx. Adrienne Hayes, who, although this is her debut for our series, she's been with us for quite a while as an investment advisor, working behind the scenes, helping to make everything that goes so smoothly and so well with our investment strategy team. She's a critical part of that. And then I've also got Mark Ganchiff, who also a seasoned pro in the industry, is fairly new with us at Stockyards Bank. I think he's working on his third month with us at the bank, an investment advisor, and he's going to speak to Medicare and all the fun stuff that goes along with the Medicare, and as you're planning for it and making annual changes, or maybe you're just getting signed up for it. So we'll go through all that. Again, just general housekeeping today is Adrienne will kick it off. We'll go through general market commentary. I'm going to keep all the questions to the end. So at the very end, we'll allow for questions. If you called in on the phone, you can unmute yourself, *6, or however you muted yourself should unmute you. You can ask a question that way, or if you're in on a computer today, you can chat questions to us. If you didn't come in through on audio or on a phone line to be able to ask verbally, but you can chat that. There's a little, looks like someone's popping some bubble gum. It says chat there on your bottom right. It should, and you can chat questions to us that way. So with that being said, the Bright Ideas, it's been pretty successful for us for the last few months. You know, you might remember, for some of you, I recognize a few names on the participant list. You've been, I think, with us probably every series we've done. And it was weekly there for a while, and as kind of the markets rebounded and found their feet a little bit, and things got a little bit more comfortable out there, we've reduced it to once a month. And so that's where we are now. August, I think July, August have been once a month, September, and then that's probably how we'll finish out the year, hopefully, fingers crossed. The only reason I'd go back to a more frequent schedule is there was bad news out there, and we weren't comfortable with the markets, kind of like what we saw in the spring. So probably moving forward, we just stay at once a month. With that being said, I'm going to let Adrienne Hayes take over here, go through some commentary for about 15 minutes, and then, like I said, Mark will take over from there, and we'll save questions for the end. So Adrienne, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you, Jason. Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is surviving the COVID-19 and staying healthy. So today I want to talk about a couple of questions that have been on our clients' minds. And so I want to do the market context into these three questions that we've seen the most of. So first question, why has there been a V-shaped recovery in the stock market when there has been no vaccine to date? So the first reason, and if you've been on this call with us over the last few months, you probably know, the Federal Reserve and central banks and the government itself has done everything and anything to prop up the market. The Federal Reserve, as you all know, has lowered interest rates to about 0%, and they've signaled that they're going to keep it there until about 2023. What has this done to the market? So what it's done is it's put kind of a floor on the market, and that's because the 10-year right now and any intermediate bond is actually yielding under 1%. What this does for investors, and a question for you all is, if you're an investor and you could buy a 10-year bond that's going to give you 0.7% interest over the next 10 years, or a dividend stock that's a blue chip stock that's going to pay you 3-4% interest, or if you buy AT&T, even 7%, most investors are going to take that stock because over the next 10 years, there's a good chance you're going to have some appreciation and you're going to get that yield. What this has done is this has added risk back into investors' portfolio, where in March and April, no one knew what was going to happen with COVID. So you've seen the market get propped up by the Fed. What we've also seen is that the government has come out and they've offered stimulus. If you were lucky enough to be one of those who got the $1,200 check, you got that stimulus, and that helped you go out and either spend it on groceries, buy something nice for yourself, take a small vacation, or if you were like those who have lost their jobs, they were able to buy food for their families and pay rent. We also saw that the government did issue PPP loans for small businesses, which helped keep them afloat for a little bit longer. The next reason, Jason, if you go to the next slide, sorry. Hit done, yep, then hit it again, sorry. The next one is we've seen faster economic recovery. And what I mean by this is if you look at the chart on the next slide, what we've seen, and I'm not going to ask you to look at this data. What's interesting with this data is if you look at the line graph, and you'll see that we bottomed out in March and April. So what we're seeing is that because the economy has slowly started to reopen, you've seen consumer spending pick up. Some of that is driven by the Fed or the government stimulus checks. Some of that is just due to we can actually go shop and we can go to restaurants. So you've seen that data pick up, and this is actually through the end of June. So it should look a lot better at the end of September, where you'll see that data really kind of V up almost. That has been good for the economy. The other thing that we've seen is unemployment hit 14% during March and April. This was the highest unemployment rate for quite some time. It is now ticked back down to 8.4%. So again, as the economy has reopened, you've seen jobs come back in. Now, what we'll watch for is this going to steady out and you're going to flatten on the job numbers as we've already gotten that boost from the economic recovery or the economic reopening of the economy. So that's something we're watching, but the economic data being more positive, and we're hoping to see double-digit GDP growth for the third quarter, where the second quarter were dismal numbers. So that's going to be a positive for the market and why you've seen the expectation go up and the market have that V-shaped recovery. The next reason and the last reason, which I think is very interesting, is we've seen this deviation between asset class returns. And on this chart on the next page, and what I mean by asset class returns is that this recession has been unlike a lot of other recessions, where you've seen the asset class that has driven the market go up is going to be on your growth stocks. And what I mean by growth stocks is we're talking more of the stay-at-home technology stocks. The market's been driven up by Apple, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix, those stay-at-home stocks. Because as you can tell, most of us are working from home, and we need those tech stocks to be able to work from home. What's been interesting is the value stocks. When you looked back at 2008, 2009 recession, those value stocks are the ones that held up the market during that recession because it was more fundamental recession, where this is more of an event recession. So we've seen that the asset class returns with growth is the one that's driven up the market, whereas value is not. What's been interesting over the last week and a half with the volatility in the market, especially in the NASDAQ, is you're starting to see a little bit of a rotation where investors are going, okay, we still like these stay-at-home stocks, but there is some value into these dividend-paying stocks that haven't quite got the run-up with these growth stocks. So we're seeing a little bit of a rotation into those value stocks with the profits that are being taken from tech stocks. But we still think that tech stocks are good, and that this is, growth is the reason why we've seen that uptick in the market so far. The next thing I want to talk about is the risk. so we know why the market has recovered. Now the clients are asking, okay, we've had this recovery, my accounts look good, I'm kind of back to where I was back in February. Now, what risk do I have to my accounts going forward? Number one risk, and it's what we all know, is COVID-19. The pandemic has changed the way we live, the way we interact, the way we work. For some of us, it has been the most financially devastating thing that's happened to us since 2008, 2009. This pandemic has interrupted supply chains. And what I mean by interrupted supply chains is if you're like me and you've tried to go out and you've tried to buy an appliance, you've tried to buy furniture for your home, you know that that typical 6 to 8 week time period is not happening. My husband and I went and bought a couch in August. We thought, oh, we'll get it by September, football season starting, we can go in our basement, watch football on our new couch. It's not happening. We're not getting our couch. We'll be lucky if we get it by Thanksgiving. So you've seen these disruptions in the supply chain. The other thing that the pandemic has done is it's escalated the closures of retail stores, restaurants, small businesses. It's been devastating to a lot of those businesses, and we've seen it. If you live in Louisville, you've seen them close left and right, especially downtown, especially ones that are brand new. They just haven't been able to stay open. Even with PPP loans, they're not able to stay open. What this has done, it has driven a bigger divide than what there was between lower income and high income paying jobs. Because as I mentioned, as you see from us, we're working from home. Higher income and those necessity jobs were able to still work and stay open. It's the lower paying jobs. It's those restaurants that closed. It's retail. Those lower paying jobs were not able to stay open, and a lot of the unemployment is coming from those lower paying jobs. That's why it's almost critical, and why the market is so volatile right now is because we have the government that we need to have another stimulus, and it's not out there yet, and that's causing some volatility in the market. The next thing is inflation. As I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons for the V-shaped recovery is what the Fed has done and what governments have done. But what that has also done is it's put a lot of money in the system. And we don't think inflation is a short-term, probably nothing, it's not going to be something we see in 2020, but it could be a risk going out 2022, 2023, and it could be even earlier than that. And what the Fed has said is that with rates, they're going to keep rates at 0%, even if we go above their 2% inflation target. So they are willing to let inflation run north of 2% for an extended period of time. So what this could do is it could really drive up inflation, and the Fed's not good. We've seen it in the past. We saw it in the 80s. The Fed is not good at controlling inflation. They don't know what's going to happen. We've never been here before. So that's a risk, and I'm not saying it's one that's going to take place in the short term, but it's something we need to watch over the long term as we've had so much money come into the market, and it really hasn't started moving around yet. So that's something that we're going to watch as we go through the next few years. My last risk to the market, which is everyone's hot button, is the election. And we normally don't like talking about the election with investments, but it is an election year, and it is going to cause some uncertainty and some volatility in the market. And this election is going to be one for the books because it's going to have uncertainty written all over it between mail-in ballots, civil unrest, and just the election in general and what's going on is going to cause some type of volatility in the market. This election will also be different because depending on if Biden gets elected, there's things that we're going to have to watch. So he's talked about raising taxes for individuals, for corporations, for even a state. And that's something that we're going to have to adjust to, and the market's going to have to adjust to if Biden gets elected. The one thing, though, that I want to remind everyone is that in general, the market doesn't really care who becomes president. As voters, we care, but the market itself doesn't care. So don't liquidate your portfolio because you like Biden and Trump might get elected and vice versa. The market doesn't care. What the market cares about more than anything is the government itself between the House and the Senate. Do we have a divided government? Do we have a unified government? At the end of the day, the market can still be positive in both scenarios, but the market itself over the past and in history, it has done better during a divided government. The reason for that is because nothing gets done. So there's no uncertainty because no new laws can be made. So we have this divided government. The markets like it. Things are status quo. So those are kind of the risks that we see in the market going forward. Now what my clients say to me is, okay, Adrienne, you've told me why we've recovered. You've told me the risk. Now what should I do? Number one, assess your risk tolerance. What I mean by that is if you're a person that at the end of the day, you see, like yesterday, the market at one point was down 1,000 points, the Dow was. If you are having a panic attack because you're like, okay, I'm losing this money, I can't deal with this, then we need to assess your risk tolerance because maybe you have more in stock than what you really need to, and we need to dial you back a little bit to make you comfortable with your investments at the end of the day. So that's why when you meet with us, we always talk about your asset allocation, your risk for the market. If the market's down 40%, your portfolio is down 20%. Are you okay with this? If not, then we need to get a little bit more conservative. So assess your risk tolerance. Number two, hardest thing in the world to do, stay invested. That's one thing in February and March when the market's going down and you're 1,000 points every day going down. And I know, everyone's panicking. We're going, oh my gosh, when's the market? When is this going to stop? And as investors and as our clients, we know that there is that panic inside you that says, okay, I can't lose any more money. I need to call whoever my investment person is and I need to liquidate. We say don't do that. And this next chart on the next page will show you that if you stay invested, this is a chart from 2004 to 2019. So that encompasses 2008, 2009. Doesn't do this year, but gives you the same effect. If you stay invested, your $10,000 investment is now $36,000. If you miss the 10 best days, your return gets cut in half. And I'm going to tell you, most of your best days comes during that bear market. If you think back to 2009, on March 9th, 2009, worst day of the market. Market hits bottom. Guess what one of the best days in the market was during 2009, 2011? March 10th, 2009. If you would have liquidated, and at my previous company that I was at, there was a client that liquidated on March 9th, 2009. Against our advice, but liquidated. He didn't get back in the market till 2011. His return, if you look at this, he probably missed 30 of the best days. His return is now negative. So when we talk to you as clients and say, stay invested, I know it's rough. I know it's hard for everybody to stay invested because over a period of time, these are just single blips. It's bad for us at the time, but it's single blips in the market that if you're invested for a period of 15 years, you're going to triple your money. So we always say stay invested. Last thing to do is assess your cash needs. And what I mean by that is if you know in the next 6 to 12 months that you're going to need a distribution out of your account, that needs to be in cash or fixed income. And I know I said at the beginning of the presentation that fixed income really isn't giving you any return, but fixed income's there for a reason. Yes, we may only get 2% return over the next few years because rates are so low, but it's there for to protect those needs that you need in the next 3 to 5 years. So assess your cash needs, we allocate your account properly so that if you have needs, it's in that fixed income bucket and we don't have to liquidate when the markets are down. So that's what you should do during these periods. And always communicate with us. We always like to communicate with you. You'll hear from us when the markets are down, up, down. that's what our goal is for you and what our job is. What I want to leave you with in conclusion is that this seems like an interesting time, but every generation has their challenges. And I'll just give you a few dates, and you hopefully in the back of your head, you can tell me what it is. A few dates where we had challenges. 1929, it was the stock market crashes. From 1939 to 1945, World War II. 1963, assassination of John F. Kennedy. 1987, stock market crashed. 2000, dot-com bubble. 2011, 9/11. And 2008 till 2009, the Great Recession. But guess what? If you look at a chart of the market, we're at all-time highs. We recovered through those challenges, and I know that this is unlike any challenges that we've faced in our generation, but always know that there is a challenge for each generation, and we will get through this. The economy will get through it, the market will get through it, and we will be better at the end of the day. It might look different, but we'll be better. And so what I want you to know is that when you look, if you're watching the news and you see something bad, just remember what we talked about today. You know why the market recovered, you know the risks in the market, and you know what to do. So at the end of the day, hopefully you can sleep at night, and hopefully we can help you do that and achieve your goals. So again, thank you for your time. If you all have any questions, please let me know at the end of Mark's presentation. So turn it over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Adrienne. Appreciate it. My name is Mark Ganchiff, and I'm an investment advisor in wealth management and trust, and I've been with Stockyard since June. Today's presentation does not have visuals, so it's kind of like a podcast, except it's live. If you're doing other things while you're listening, that's okay, but please do pay attention. We're going to cover some important information. This will be a financial planner's perspective on Medicare. I've been involved in health insurance planning for about 6 years, and I speak with people who work in health insurance a lot, but I don't work in the Medicare or health insurance business. If you do have a specific question you'd like to discuss, please contact me directly. So why are we talking about Medicare on a Bright Ideas call? We don't have a Medicare product, and it's not a financial service. The reason we should know a little about Medicare and health insurance is because it's important to our clients. According to a 2015 Bankrate survey, paying for health care is the #1 concern for people approaching retirement. The #2 concern is saving enough money. For older people, maintaining or managing their health is important. Consider that 78% of people over 55 have at least one chronic condition, whether it's arthritis, cancer, asthma, or some other illness. If you're advising upper middle-aged or older people, health is a concern and we need to address it. So getting back to Medicare, it's easy to confuse Medicare and Medicaid. Medicaid is a medical aid program designed for people who don't have enough assets to afford medical care. Medicare is a health insurance system provided and administered by the federal government, primarily for people over age 65. Unlike Medicaid, Medicare has no income or asset limits. Medicare is second only to Social Security in terms of participants. 44 million people, or 15% of the U.S. population, is enrolled in Medicare, which is a lot. Before getting into Medicare planning, let's go over some Medicare terminology. The basics of Medicare start with 4 letters, A, B, D, and C. Why does C come after D? I'll explain in a minute. Part A, which is the first part of Medicare, covers inpatient hospital expenses. For most people, Part A is free. Part B covers doctor bills. There's a monthly premium for Part B. The Part B premium for most people is now $144.60 a month. If either you or your spouse has contributed to Medicare for 10 years, you're eligible to participate at age 65. So we have Part A and Part B, and that's often called traditional Medicare. With traditional Medicare, you can go to any doctor or hospital in the U.S. that takes Medicare, and over 80% of doctors do take Medicare reimbursement. With traditional Medicare, Parts A and B, you don't need a referral to see a specialist in most cases. Traditional Medicare has been around a long time. It was signed into law by Lyndon Johnson in 1967. So that's Parts A and B, and then there's another part called Part D. Part D is Medicare for prescription drugs. This is the only part of Medicare where the letter is useful to remember the name of the benefit. Part D is the drug benefit, easy. Part D came along in 2006, signed into law by George Bush. Part C, the fourth part, is sometimes called Medicare Advantage, and it was signed into law by Bill Clinton in 1997. Part C came last, and that's why it goes after Part D. We're going to delve deeper into Part C because it's the hot Medicare product currently. Part C, or Medicare Advantage, as it's sometimes called, mean the same thing. Part C gets a little complicated, but it's essentially a Medicare HMO. To sign up for Part C, there must be a local network of healthcare providers in your area, and you must use those providers. Well, you could use other healthcare providers outside the network, but you'd pay the bill. Part C is taking a lot of market share from traditional Medicare, Parts A and B. Last year, 22 million people were enrolled in Part C, and it's been growing by about 6% a year since 2017. The government predicts that by 2029, 42% of Medicare enrollees will be in Part C. Currently, 43% of enrollees are in Part C, so that's pretty rapid growth. As mentioned, Part C is a federally regulated health insurance plan for retirees sold by for-profit insurance companies. The largest Part C provider is United Healthcare, and they get a lot of business through their partnership with AARP. The second largest Part C provider is Humana, which is based right here in Louisville, Kentucky. Blue Cross is a big player in group health insurance, but they've been slow to penetrate the Medicare market. Why is Part C so popular? Mainly because of price. Half of Part C enrollees pay no premium other than the Part B premium, which I think we said was $144 a month. Among Medicare Advantage participants who do pay a separate Part C premium, the average cost is $65 a month. Part C premiums have been going down over the past 5 years, and you can't say that about traditional Medicare premiums, which have been going up. The Part B premium was less than $100 a month as recently as 2012. Like we said, now it's $144 a month. In addition, with Part C, you don't need prescription drug coverage. Having no Part D premiums also helps Part C compete with traditional Medicare on cost. And if you stay in the network for your care, the max annual out-of-pocket with Part C is $5,000 a year. That's pretty good. Part C usually has dental, fitness, eye care benefits. Some Part C plans even have health club memberships. Traditional Medicare does not cover dental and vision, and you don't get a health club membership either. The ads you see on TV for Medicare, like the one with Joe Namath, are usually for Part C. These ads really push the ancillary Part C benefits. Some Part C plans even have meal delivery, free meal delivery for a limited time. So as we discussed, Part C is often free, but you do have to pay the Part B premium, which we'll discuss in a minute more. Contrast the cost of Part C with the most popular Medicare supplement called Plan G, which is around $350 a month. With traditional Medicare, you will also probably have to pay for Part D, which is around $50 a month on average. Medicare Part C is usually much less expensive than traditional Medicare, but there is a downside. Almost all Part C plans require prior authorization for treatment, and you must stay in the provider's network to get coverage. If you're healthy and stay healthy, Part C can be a pretty good deal. But if you get an illness that requires specialized treatment or is difficult to diagnose, Part C can restrict your ability to get the care you want. Mainly because of Part C gatekeepers, a lot of affluent people elect traditional Medicare, even though it costs more. With traditional Medicare, you can see any doctor or go to any hospital in the country that accepts Medicare. If you need to go to the Mayo or Cleveland Clinic and you have traditional Medicare will pay for your care. If you have Part C, though, and you want to go to Mayo or Cleveland Clinic, Part C might eventually pay the cost, but you would have to first work through a course of treatment with your Part C doctors. So as you can probably imagine, cost containment and cost control are some of the main objectives of Part C. How it works is the federal government pays insurance companies between $10,000 and $14,000 a year for each Part C member. The insurance company has to use that money for patient care, but it does not need to spend any preset amount per patient. That's different than traditional Medicare, where the government pays medical service providers directly for the care they provide. That's a big difference between Part C and traditional Medicare from the government's perspective. Traditional Medicare is therefore essentially an open-ended promise from the government to pay for whatever care is provided. But with Part C, the government's participant cost is capped. If your Part C expenses are more than what the insurance company gets from the government, the insurance company is on the hook for the costs. The federal agency in charge of Medicare has a good star rating system for Part C plans. High-ranking plans are given special treatment in regard to enrollment periods. The rankings also make it easier to shop for the right Part C plan. A few final words about Part C. It's obviously a lot cheaper and a lot simpler than traditional Medicare with Part D and a supplement. The one-stop shopping aspect of Part C is appealing to many people for good reason, but it's not the right plan for everyone, although it's often sold that way. We won't spend much time on Part D, the Medicare prescription drug benefit, but it's worth noting just how massive the prescription drug benefit has grown. In 2017, Part D paid $101 billion for prescription drugs. That's 30% of all retail prescription drug spending. Part B, the hospital part of Medicare, also covers certain drugs. With Part B, physicians both prescribe and dispense medicine. This allows them to profit on the spread between what they pay for drugs and what Medicare reimburses. So far, we've discussed the general provisions of Medicare. Now we're going to shift gears and discuss some of the trickier aspects of how the program works. One of the most confusing and potential costly issues with Medicare is how the program pays for skilled nursing care. If you remember one thing from this, please remember that Medicare Part A provides skilled nursing care benefits, which are different than long-term care benefits. The most concise definition of what Medicare skilled nursing is care that is used to rehab from a hospital stay or from a serious illness. Strokes and falls are probably the most common examples. Skilled nursing care must be provided by a Medicare-approved skilled nursing facility. A skilled nursing facility is a residential facility that provides 24-hour medical care on site. Now that's different from a long-term care facility that helps people with the daily tasks of life, like eating, dressing, and bathing. Helping with the daily activities of life is called custodial care and is usually provided by nursing homes. Custodial care can last months or years, and it is not covered at all by Medicare. To get insurance coverage for custodial care, you will need to have a separate long-term care policy. That can be an expensive proposition. So again, Medicare does not cover for custodial care, which is often called long-term care. But if you meet the criteria, Medicare does pay for 20 days of skilled nursing care at 100%. After 20 days of skilled nursing care, you'll pay a copay, but Medicare still pays a portion. Now here's the tricky part, which can cost you, a friend, or a family member who is in the hospital. Skilled nursing benefits are triggered by a 3-day inpatient hospital stay. An outpatient hospital stay does not trigger skilled nursing care, and the doctor must also order the skilled nursing care. As hard as it is to imagine, it's possible to stay in the hospital for 3 days as an outpatient. Apparently, hospitals have incentives to admit people as outpatients instead of inpatients, which seems like a perverse incentive to me. So if you have a friend or family member who's in Medicare and they need hospitalization, make sure they are admitted as an inpatient. Skilled nursing care costs run around $300 a day, so the difference between being covered by Medicare for skilled nursing care and not being covered can be thousands of dollars. If the hospital pushes back against inpatient admittance, the doctor may need to order it. Okay, so moving on, another common misconception about Medicare is that it is free or that a person will have limited medical expenses after age 65. As we've discussed, Medicare is not free. The Part B premium plus Part D plus a supplement that covers the gaps in Medicare totals about $550 a month in most parts of the country. And even with full medical coverage, some out-of-pocket expenses can occur. For 2016, the most recent year available, Medicare beneficiaries spent $3,100 out of their own pocket on average for health care. The largest outside expense by far was long-term care. The financial planning software we use in our department adds an estimate of full retiree healthcare expenses to retirement expenses. When you add healthcare expenses to a retirement projection, it often makes a big difference in how much people need to save to retire safely. As mentioned, Part A of Medicare is usually free, but Part B is $144.60 a month. But there is a crafty Medicare premium surtax if your taxable income is above $87,000 for single taxpayers and $174,000 for married couples. If your income is just $1 over those limits, $87,000 for singles and $174,000 for married couples, your premiums go up 40%. So again, just $1 over those limits and your premiums increase by 40%. Adding to this complexity of the Medicare premium surtax, which is called IRMA, is a 2-year look back for income purposes. In other words, if you started Medicare this year, your 2018 income is used to determine your Medicare premium. There's one more Medicare pitfall we'll go over, and it applies to people with retiree health insurance from a former employer. It's true that people over age 65 are still working and still have group health insurance don't need to pay Medicare premiums. But if you're not working and in a retiree health plan, you must pay Medicare premiums, Part B premiums, or you will be penalized for the rest of your life. That's because retiree health plans always pay second to Medicare. Therefore, you must have Medicare if you're in a retiree health plan age 65 or over. Thanks for listening to this presentation. I know it's not the most uplifting subject, but it is important to everyone, even if you're decades from Medicare age. Medicare is predicted to have funding shortfalls much sooner than Social Security. The Medicare Trust Fund that funds Part A, the hospital part of Medicare, may run out of money in 2 or 3 years as a result of COVID. There are no Part A premiums, as we discussed, so the 1.45 payroll tax we all pay generates all the money to fund the Part A trust. When the Part A trust fund doesn't have enough money to pay all claims, hospitals will probably get paid less, paid more slowly, or both. You think hospitals would be up in arms about this, but hospitals are so caught up with the COVID pandemic, they're not raising the issue yet, but they will. So thanks for taking your time to listen to this presentation about Medicare. Again, if you have any general questions, I can answer them now, but any specific questions probably would be better addressed one-on-one over the phone.
No, thanks, Mark, and thanks, Adrian. Also, I appreciate the comments. You know, I wanted to bring some commentary from Adrian today, just given some of the volatility that had crept into the market over the last 10 days, let's say, and then decide to bring Mark on to speak to Medicare, because I know we have open enrollment periods coming up. So for those that are already in the system, October 15th, you'll make your enrollment decisions for next year. And if you're newly enrolling, maybe you missed or your age 65 enrollment period or whatever it might be, January 1st will be your open general enrollment. But if we have any callers that are on here that are getting close to 65 and they're not quite there yet, your enrollment period will be, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's 3 months before you turn the age 65 and 3 months after, and that's kind of the window you want to really target and get it done then, so you're not penalized. But again, thanks to both of our speakers. I will, at this point now, if you have a question via computer, you can certainly chat a question into me. If you're on the phone line and you'd like to ask a question, please unmute yourself and ask a question, and I'll give a couple minutes for that for questions to come in. I'll give it a couple more minutes, but while I wait to see if anyone chats a question in or comes in on the phone line. For October, probably the likely scenario of our WebEx series for next month will be, there probably will not be a financial planning or a specific topic that we speak to like we did with Medicare. I'm probably going to leave it open for 30 to 45 minutes and allow some of our investment team members to speak a little bit more detail around what we see for the rest of the year, speak to the election, maybe the outcomes that we would foresee if it was a Biden elected versus a Trump, and kind of talk you through what both sides of those outcomes would look like for an investor. As Adrian mentioned, though, at the end of the day, we can see short-term volatility from an election, but the markets generally rebound and kind of find their feet and pick their direction fairly quickly after an election. And right now is probably the time, if you're not feeling comfortable with your portfolio allocation, I would suggest that you do reach out to an Adrian or whoever your advisor is and have that conversation. Make sure you're ready for, future volatility. I think our investment team would tell you the remainder of this year will probably be somewhat turbulent, and largely based off the two main events that Adrian talked about, and that is the election, but COVID-19. And as schools have been back in session, colleges have struggled with cases, and when we get to Thanksgiving, Christmas, we're going to have students coming home from colleges and potentially spreading it. I know that's a worry. So that's probably our big volatility coming up. But, we want to make sure you have a portfolio that you can stick to, an allocation that's going to not keep you up at night. Because at the end of the day, as hard as it might seem, even this past March when the market seemed like it was just going down, staying invested really is the best outcome, and there's proof at the end of that. Back in August, we saw portfolios get back to even. So we want you to be able to stay invested, but be in an allocation that you can comfortably do that. So I haven't seen any questions come through for today. Just remember, if you do have any questions at any point, you could always email us at wmtquestions@syb.com generally, and I'll make sure that we get those answered to you right back at you. And if you ever have any suggestions as you are a client on the other end looking for topics that we should be speaking to, I'm more than welcome you to shoot an idea also to that. So WMT for the Wealth Management Trust, questions@syb.com. Otherwise, I hope you all enjoy a beautiful week. The weather's been great. Get outside, watch that grass get green again, do your lawn maintenance, and we'll catch up in a couple of weeks and go through probably a higher level or more in depth, I should say, probably market commentary. So I appreciate everyone coming on board today. We appreciate you as clients, and hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.